Hey everyone, welcome back to the StrideCast, second season, I guess you could call it. I was just about to describe to my good friend, colleague Cheryl Tansey, who's joining me today from Wellington, New Zealand. Thanks for being here, Cheryl.
Oh man, it's like I mentioned, it's actually the future here in New Zealand. It's Tuesday here and Monday for you, which is just blows my mind.
And the good news is, for anybody watching this, she says that Tuesday, June 9th has been a great day. So we've got good stuff to look forward to.
Yeah.
I was just about to describe to Cheryl that back on the StrideCast, so first sort of season of what it is that I did with the interviews that I conducted and the people that I connected with in my network, and was really about leadership during COVID-19. So I had started it back in late March, and ran through 12 episodes. I look back on that now and I can't believe I did 12, but got through them. Had a lot of fun. The theme of that was for me to have conversation with leaders specifically about COVID and how their business had shifted, how their leadership style had shifted. I learned a ton. I got some really good feedback from people that dialed in. I didn't get millions of views or subscriptions, although I didn't really expect that. That wasn't that wasn't my goal, but really good feedback. And then what I've announced through my social media is that the second chapter or the second season of the StrideCast is going to be about getting practical and getting very sort of resourceful when it comes to who it is that I connect with in conversation, to leave listeners with tangible value. So something that they can actually walk away with and say, hey, you know what? I'm glad I spent that amount of time, invested in listening to Kev and whoever he's talking to, because I can take some of this stuff and start to apply it to my life. So Cheryl, congratulations. You are the first guest on the new, and I'm super excited to have you. Cheryl, take a sec. Tell everybody how it is that you and I come together and what it is that you do.
Cool. So I wear a few different hats. One of them is as a coach, which is probably my favorite hat to wear. So growing and developing people specifically at work. That's a really big focus for me. I have a belief that if we can amplify people at work, we can amplify people in every area of their life. So for me, so that work as a coach, as a leader, but also I learned through doing more and more coaching, another way in which I could amplify people was through teaching. So that's teacher is also one of the hats that I wear, and then facilitation as well. So depending on who I'm working with and what their needs are at the time, I switch hats between them. But yeah, amplifying people at work is what lights me up.
Super cool. And that for you and I is very sort of typical banter, or sort of we come together in sort of that context, in our belief that people need to take care of themselves, be mindful of what it is that's working well for them, what is not, because that in a professional context is going to help them kind of drive their career forward amongst a number of other things. And then I think you and I also believe quite deeply that also how it is that you approach the professional life is also going to impact your life outside of work. So it's not just what you do behind your desk, but it's also that ripple effect of where else it shows up in your life.
Yeah. And my sense is, certainly from my perspective in New Zealand, and I watch a lot of the world and a lot of my good friends in Canada, because I lived in Vancouver for a few years, which is how we've sort of ended up in the same circles.
Shout out Kristen Constable.
Yes, Kristen Constable brought us together, obviously as coaches and leaders of coaches in this space. But yeah, when I look at, as you mentioned, how people show up at work, how this pandemic around the world has completely changed the way we work, which has, from my perspective, really shifted and blurred the lines between work and out of work. And I've really kind of enjoyed watching what's happened through, when you turn on your camera and you're in a work call and your kids are running around in the background, or there's a builder fixing, so there's things going on that you can see someone's real life, and this facade between the two seems to have got pulled down through this remote working, through this work from home. So I love, in a way, what, through all of this challenge that we've faced, what that's actually done for us, of like bringing these two worlds together.
How are you finding that showing up, like with those that you work with? Like, where is that? Yeah. What are you learning? What's happening?
Yeah. I always find it interesting that moment you go to a dinner party, or you meet someone at a bar, or the first time meeting someone, and there's that moment where at some point in the conversation, the person's going to ask what you do. Depending on how the person sees the world, if work is very, very important to them, it's usually the first thing that they ask, or it's a way for us to often try and figure out who this other person is. Sure. Is asking what they do, because obviously what they do must represent who they are. And I'm always really conscious of this now, and that I often try and not ask that when I first meet someone, because I find the number of times that I ask someone what they do, I watch their whole demeanor drop. And this sort of, I've got to answer this question, and I don't really like what I do, and even though this totally identifies me as a person, and now they're going to judge me because of the job that I do, this crazy sort of attachment that we have to, our identity is, very much wrapped around what we do as our job. Which one, it's always a really refreshing moment when someone goes, I love what I do. And it doesn't even matter what the job is. I love when I see people love what they do. Yeah. And it's again, I see this real shift that's happened with people. I'm giving the experience from what we've experienced here in New Zealand, but one of our really strong messages from an early stage of the COVID pandemic was around look after yourself. The number one goal for our country over the next, and it ended up being, I think we've just actually, today is a milestone for us. We've come into what's called level 1, which is an almost functioning society and economy, where we've lifted all of our social distancing, because we officially have no cases of COVID in New Zealand now. Wow. And so we've gone through this very intense process where we shut down everything. And we had to work out how to exist and how to live without being able to interact. And the number one message from our government was look after yourself. Yeah. And it wasn't make sure that your business is still functioning. It was, here is some money to get you through. Yep. Go home and look after yourself, look after your health, look after your family. And all of a sudden, these things that we know are important became the things that we focused on. And I'm now watching as we start to lift the restrictions and people start to kind of blend back into this way of working and going into work, and that there's this awareness for people that they developed around looking after themselves and their family, that I think really has fundamentally changed something in us around being aware what our priorities are in our life. Sure. And I'm hearing this more and more come up. It's becoming a lot more common for people to say, hey guys, I've got to drop off the call. My kids are home. Or, hey, I've got a class that starts in 10 minutes, so can we wrap this meeting up? Yeah. Like, people are actually, they're out of work life, has a great importance, and it's being balanced. And I'm seeing this show up, and I just so badly want to help people maintain that as the economy and the shift back to this kind of go back into your roles now starts to be asked of us. Yeah, super relatable. Same thing here. I mean, the way that you described it as a country, and the fact that your leadership has said, hey, take care of yourself, take a look at what it is that you need. And we're not talking about professional, we're talking about how it is that you live your life day in, day out. My experience has been
similar with those that I've been in contact with. So family, friends, clients, everybody's seems to have this sort of heightened level of awareness around, excuse me, what's important for them. So stepping out of the forest, I think I used that in one of our calls and I think you liked it, but stepping out of the forest and just picking a couple of trees. I think it's applied to people's lives in some way, shape, or form. They've been able to, we've all had to, at some level, had to slow things down. But then there's this big question of, okay, that sounds great. What do I do? Like, if you've never done it before, if you've never focused on your own well-being or what it is that you need, where does that start? How does that start? Kristen and I talked a little bit about that on our podcast as well. And I think there's still a challenge there, Cheryl. Like I think there's still a ton of room for growth for individuals when it comes to how it is that they care about themselves. So self-care has been sort of a buzz term for a couple years now, and I think it's become mainstream and sort of trendy enough that people are like, oh, cool, I went to get my hair done. That's me doing self-care. Sure, it's a part of it, but there's levels to it. There's a lot more to it. I will tell you that when I encourage people to go into being mindful themselves and take care of what they need to take care of, what gets in the way, and I'd love your thoughts on this, is the challenge of making a shift into being selfish. Or what at least they perceive to be, well, man, I can't spend that much energy focusing on what I need because I got kids and I got a spouse and I have a boss and I have a coworker. How could I possibly tell them they have to wait while I take care of what's most important to me? Any thoughts there?
Oh, yeah. To be fair, I think the word selfish has got a bad rap.
It does. It totally does. Depending on who you talk to.
Exactly. Just even the word selfish often, brings about feelings of guilt and self-absorption, and as if this idea that when we look after ourselves, as a result, we're neglecting others, as if it has to be. And so I often am working with people that have a real desire to help others. So the idea of being selfish is just not even in their vocabulary. So one of the things I like to focus on in those scenarios, or with any client, but especially people that find that challenging, is talking around your energy levels and recognizing, and I use a little analogy of an energy tank. And so you imagine, similar to a petrol or a gas tank that you have in your car, that if your tank is empty, you don't have a lot to give. And by working harder or giving more, your tank is just dropping every single day. And this, I find, can be a really valuable sort of analogy. And often, again, when we're working on a regular basis, we'll use this as a metric to actually determine where is your energy at the moment. And it's neither good nor bad. It just is what it is. It's like when you get into your car, you don't look at your gas tank and go, what do you mean you're empty? Like, I'm pretty sure you should be full. Like, you've used it up. You've driven around and you haven't filled it up. And that same idea of, if perhaps the word selfish doesn't align for people, but filling your energy tank so that you have the energy you need in order to be able to show up and really help people is critical.
Exactly that. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And but I still think, by and large, there's a challenge there. Like, people are, again, because that sort of negative connotation attached to being selfish, that how could I? People are depending on me. That is true, but we can't expect to operate from our best place if we're trying to ride 400 kilometers on a quarter of a tank. It just doesn't work. At some point, the car, what would happen? The engine would seize, or, you're on the side of the highway calling somebody to see if they can, we call it a jerry can, the petrol tank that I think you described. So somebody's got to rush over with a jerry tank and get you filled up so you can get back on the road. I think the goal here, or what we're talking about, is not, in human terms, it's when you hit that wall, or you feel it, or you feel like you're stuck, like you're so drained that you can't push anything forward.
Absolutely.
So by making sure that you're constantly topping up your tank, so if it gets to, and it's going to get to a 3/4 mark, it's going to get to, you know, a halfway point at some point, but it's just a matter of every once in a while, maybe stopping and just shooting a couple of bucks of fuel back into your tank to make sure that we don't get down to that sort of, you know, that the bottom of the tank.
Exactly. And that's the beautiful, you know, around this concept, it's the beautiful part is you don't necessarily need to go and take a week off and go and sit on a beach in an island, or, I mean, that is lovely, but it, you know, you don't need to go to extreme levels to fill up your tank. Your tank could be filled by a walk along the beach, or going and sitting, you know, if there's a bit of sunshine outside, just go and sit there and read your book, or close your eyes and do a few deep breaths. You know, like there are ways you can fill up your tank very quickly and very easily. But you need to be conscious when it's low, so that you can actually go, oh, I actually need to take an active step right now in order to fill it back up. And something you mentioned about, like, even though we know this, we still continue to run our tank on empty. One of the things that I find that can be helpful for that is actually recognizing the impact of what happens when our tank is low. And so I quite like to, with people, is you know, tell me what is a 10 out of 10, if we would use a 1 to 10 scale. What does a 10 look like?
Sure.
What is happening for you when you're at a 10? And, you know, people normally say, you know, think of a time when you've been a 10 out of 10 in your energy levels. You know, I'm thriving, I'm laughing, I'm waking up early, whatever the symptoms are of that. And then what is a 0? What does it look like when you're empty? And often those zeros are, I can't help people. I can't even show up. I can't get out of bed. I can't, you know, so recognizing not just the impact on yourself, because sometimes that's not enough for people to actually do something, but what's the impact on, you know, your
everybody
children
around us.
And especially for people that are, you know, in roles of giving to others, that can sometimes be the motivation that they need to give themselves permission to go and fill up their energy tank. Because if you can just get back up to a 3 or a 4, you can walk back out into your workplace and you can show up. Or you know, help others.
That's exactly it. I try to tell my wife, hey, if you just let me sleep for 11 hours a night, I'll be a way better dad and a way better husband. She doesn't believe me.
How's that working out for you?
Yeah, that's all right. All right. Once a week. Yeah, I get my 8 hours. Hey, do you want to let's play with this a little bit. Let's try to leave some value and try to maybe try to personalize this as much as we can, or personify this. You want to go back and forth and talk about what our sort of our personal indicators are that our tank is starting to drain?
Absolutely.
Cool. I'll start and say I get cranky. Like I get,
one of mine is overwhelm.
Okay.
Even the smallest things that shouldn't overwhelm me are too much.
I'm not reaching out to anybody. So I'm not connecting with either, and that's professional, or it's like, I can't do this with you today unless I'm in a good place. Like I just can't. I would have very politely emailed you an hour ago and said, hey, Cheryl, can we just, and I would have told you that my energy is off, or that I'm not where I need to be. So I'm not connecting. I'm not calling friends. I'm not checking in. So that's a symptom for me of being low.
Similarly, I'm making excuses for not giving to people. I'm not calling people back. I'm sending them a text message, or someone's asking for something from me and I'm making an excuse as to why I can't do it. I can feel myself just what feels like I'm just crawling into a ball and I just don't want to come out of it.
So I think very relatable. I think what's important to mention is, because when you said that and you described that, it hit somewhere for me, and it's possible that it'll hit somewhere for people that are others that are listening and watching this as well. What do you do at that moment? So how do you find yourself out of that hole? Because at times it is likely tempting to just stay there and just expect that the right meal, which, hey, maybe that's one of the things, or the right song or the right show while you're laying in bed or wherever you are, is going to crack you out of it. Can we get super practical and talk about sort of, some ABCs as to how to, if you've identified it, if anybody listening or watching says, oh shit, I know what that is. I've lived there before, or I live there somewhat frequently. Cheryl, lead out, please. What's one thing that we can do?
So just to premise that my answer to this is each person's energy refuelers will be unique and different. There are definitely common patterns of things that work for everyone, and there'll be some things that are unique to you that you do not need to explain to anyone else.
Yeah, totally.
I like to liken it to like a medicine cabinet or a natural health cabinet, whatever you use. So for example, when you wake up and you have a bit of a sore throat, or you start sneezing all of a sudden, it tells you that something's not quite right. What do you need to do in that moment? Now, most people know when their health is starting to drop, and that's also for me another symptom. When my energy's low, my body starts to tell me that. I start to see symptoms, or achy, or whatever whatever your symptoms are. For some people, they go and make a hot lemon and honey drink. They go and put themselves to bed early. They turn off the television and just sit and relax, or whatever those things are that we do for our physical health, because we know we need to. It's a similar sort of method when it comes to noticing, wow, I feel like I can't reply to anyone, I can't do anything right now, my energy's obviously low. Imagine you have your own cabinet that you go to go and fuel up. And so again, for me, nature is one of the quickest ways for me to get out of that funk. And it's, I'll be in the middle of something and go, I have such a deadline, I've got to get this done. I'm going to put it down, I'm going to put my shoes on, and I'm going to go for a walk. And again, you might see that as a selfish act, but I know if I sit there and keep trying to do this deadline, whatever I've got to do, my tank's going to get lower. What I create is probably going to be pretty shit. It's not going to be very good. And I'm going to come out the end of it still exhausted, and maybe even more depleted than I was before. So that cooking for me is another one, just actually baking things, not for any purpose, just to create and use my hands and use a different part of my brain. Flowers for some, really, again, these are one of those,
like getting around flowers, or
going and getting flowers.
Oh, cool.
Okay. And just so I have them visually in my presence. Just having a bouquet of flowers, or pick a few flowers from the garden and put them on my desk. Gives me energy. It just makes me happy.
That's amazing. Yeah, that makes sense. I will. I'm a physically, actually, literally stop and smell the flowers kind of a guy. So, so when I'm out on nature, so one of my ways of sort of breaking out of, not breaking out of, but rejuvenating, or sort of, topping up my tank, is nature. I think I've told you this. We live on a mountain, so I can actually walk out the front door, and we are like in a forest. So we have like world-class trails all over, and it's June. So here it's summer. Cheryl shared, in case this didn't occur to you, whoever's watching, that winter officially landed in New Zealand on June 1st. So happy winter. We're blooming all sorts of beautiful stuff right now. So for me, getting out, going for a walk, being in nature, breathing intentionally. I realized, so I spent 3 minutes before we jumped on today breathing intentionally. First time today. How did I feel when I sat in my chair? Exceptional. It was really good. Just a really good blast of oxygen. But I'll stop and smell flowers. So that's relatable. Cooking for me is also a thing. If I can get in front of the barbecue, I feel like it's a way that I can isolate myself in front of the grill, because the kids have to stay away. So it's like there's a meditation, aspect of that for me. And then I also get to hit another one of my core values, which is a lot of what we're talking about. Maybe we'll circle to that at some point, is that I get to provide for my family. So I can be in an absolute shit mood and I can be drained and feel like crap, but I can go out there, I'm outside, I'm in front of a grill, and then I'm going to feed them. And that to me really means something. So being a contributor and being a part of something, being a part of my bigger picture and, helping out my wife and being sort of productive for the family, that makes me feel alive again. Yeah. Cool.
And another one that, again, I find really valuable, and I know that a number of people I work with find it valuable, is getting these thoughts out of my head. So often when my energy is low, my brain is overactive. There's too much usually going on in there.
Sure.
And so for me personally, writing.
Yeah.
So I have, I have normal size journals, like this sort of size, but I also have A3 big, massive pieces of paper.
Oh, cool.
And I get out what are all the things that are just percolating in my brain, and it's more than I can, it's kind of an overload, but I need to get them out of my head.
Yep.
Often I need to do that before I go for the walk or before I go and do, so that at least my worrying brain that goes, I might forget that I have to do this, or I often refer to a worry list.
Yeah.
I'll just write, what are all the things that are worrying me right now? And I find that is a pretty easy list to write when I'm in that state.
Sure.
Well, and once they're down and I can see them and they're outside of my brain, it allows me to step back from them and go and do the energy charging activity or meditation or breathing, whatever it is. And I can come back and I've got the list of what they're still there.
Yeah.
The worries are right there. And I'm a bit of a geek. As you know, I work a lot in the agile space. So prioritization is key for me.
Sure.
So it actually allows me to come back and go, which is the biggest of the worries that I need to deal with first? And I tackle that one first.
You know what that takes though, Cheryl? It takes what you said. So for you to be able to sit back at your table with that list and say, okay, which one of these now? Is you need to get present. Like you need to get current. And so when you describe that process of taking, here I am, taking either that or the larger size scrapbook or notebook and sort of getting it out. So externalizing it, tons of power in that. What is the power for those of you listening? You're getting it out of your head. So whether you do it through a conversation or you do it on a piece of paper, it's getting out. And then Cheryl takes off on a walk, spends 30 minutes in nature, gets some fresh air. By the time she goes back to sit at her desk and to tackle the same challenges that were there before she went on her walk, she's in a different place entirely. She's giving herself a much stronger likelihood of coming to some type of a conclusion and moving forward.
And she has the energy and the power to actually even try.
Yeah.
And that's where this concept around renewing your own energy.
Yeah.
Renewable energy. I love this concept around renewable people energy. You can't expect a solar panel to just keep giving energy if you don't put it in the sun.
Sure.
You give yourself an opportunity when you're in overwhelm and you're crawling into that ball and you can't respond to anyone.
Yep.
Getting what is stressing you out or worrying you, getting it out in front of you, whether that be writing, speaking, drawing a picture, whatever that might be. Go and get some energy, be the solar panel and go outside or whatever you need to do. So you've recharged something in your body.
Yep.
And you come back in, you are, like you said, you are in such a better position to tackle it. And what I always find really interesting is when I look on that page again, I see everything quite differently. I've now got, when you look at your problems or your worries from another perspective outside of your own head, often I look at it and go, 85% of these don't even really matter.
They're not even a thing. I just had to,
but there is 15% that really does matter.
Yeah.
And that actually with the, I've now got kind of 30% energy. So I've only got I'm still not topped up, but I've got enough energy to tackle the most important thing. I'll deal with that today. And the rest of them, I'll come back to them tomorrow.
Putting yourself in a position to even identify what the most important thing is requires you to be centered. And that term may or may not resonate with some, but being centered is kind of being as close as you can to your true self. Maybe a different conversation in and of itself, but yeah, giving yourself the opportunity to reset a little bit. Maybe that's, to kind of hit pause on the video for a second, or just, pull out the modem and reset it for a stronger signal connection. It's the first thing that I'll do, right?
Totally.
It's the same thing. So why is it solar panel, modem, whatever it may be, give yourself a damn chance to step aside for a second and rebuild some connection and some energy.
What's the number one line you hear from the IT support person? Turn it off and turn it on.
Yeah. We've done that. Can you give me the other thing now? We've gone through this enough times. Yeah. Can you send somebody out to the house?
And he's like, have you turned it off and turned? Well, no, I haven't actually turned it off and turned it off, but I don't think that's the problem. And then you do it, and then sure enough, things work.
I think I'm going to call this episode Refresh Your Connection.
Oof. Nice.
Right? Makes sense? Because that's what it is. And I think, so, if we talk specifically about this time in the world that we live in, there's a lot going on. And I think everybody wears that differently, and everybody sort of, as you said, there's no sort of one size fits all, or there's no cookie cutter approach to how it is that, people are going to find themselves back to that center spot, or, feel as if they've hit reset a little bit. That's going to vary, but I think it's certainly a time where we as a people need to spend time at least considering how we're being impacted. Because again, when it comes to somebody like yourself, and I do as well, but we spend a lot of time around asking people very awkward and strange questions around how they manage their energy. And it's likely that it's the first time that they've been asked questions of that nature, because we call it balance, right? I mean, I think the thing that people are forever in pursuit of, and the dragon that they're in pursuit of, is balance. And I'll stop clients dead in their tracks, and I'll go, no, it's not about balance. Not in my world. It's about, and I learned this idea from Kristen, is the inclusion piece, which is find out what's most important to you, find out what it is that you need to be doing to tick at your best, and sit there, be there, define those things, and be willing to live there.
Yeah. And like you said, in this time and age that we're in of rapid change, we've never seen the level of intensity of change in our day-to-day lives ever before. And this is, a lot of the work that I do in the agile space. So teaching and supporting organizations to work in an agile way.
Yep.
A lot of that requires, there's a common word used in the agile world called sprint, to sprint. So a sprint is a time box. It might be a week, it might be 2 weeks, and it's a length of time that a team have to deliver something.
Okay.
So this concept was introduced over 20 years ago as this, how can we time box a piece of work that we're going to do, so that at the end of that time box, we have something that we can show our customer to determine whether or not we're on the right track as to whether or not we should keep building it. So the concept is great. It forces us to actually finish things, stop starting and start finishing.
Sure.
If you've got a set amount of time and you can't keep starting 1,000 things, you actually have to finish something.
Sure.
The challenge that's come with that over the last sort of 10, 15 years of organizations becoming agile is that this concept of sprinting is not sustainable. And so one of the things I see a lot as an agile coach are these teams that burn out. We're asking this really high level of performance from these individuals. And this is, in my view, is possibly where this need for this energy regeneration has become even more prominent. Is if you work in a job or an organization, that it's okay for you to to not be high performing, to just do enough in order to meet your targets and, get home at night and be able to see your family. If sort of coasting is a life that you're comfortable with, then possibly the regeneration of energy isn't as important. But when we're talking about high performance, and this goes outside of the business world to high performance sport, which I know is one of your jams and your worlds. When we're looking at high performance, in order to perform at a high level, we need to factor in the regeneration phase in order to do that. And so when we think about that in a workplace, we're asking for high agility of people, which is asking them to be able to respond quickly to change. And that requires a very high level of energy, a high level of consciousness and awareness. You're making decisions on a regular basis. All of these things are taking a very high cognitive load on us that we cannot maintain this all day, every day, or we will burn out. And I see it in so many organizations. So actually, that seems to be a part that we, certainly within the agile world, we're very focused on the high intensity, high performance, high agility, which is fantastic. And I love the world in which we work, that we can create that for people of this amazing level of performance. But we need regeneration.
Thanks for sharing that. And that's very relatable in what I do as well, in the conversations that I'll have, especially usually the first conversation I'll get on, I'll start working with a new client, and in a first conversation, they'll talk about this incredible work they do. And they're like, man, like I'm just always busy. And and they'll say it without knowing it. They're like, I'm really burnt out by the end of my day, but I'm go. And I want to get to the director level. And I know that, my director is leaving in the next few months, or he's retiring, or she's retiring. And so I have this great opportunity. All I have to do is work 14 or 15 hours a day, and I know I'll get there, but I haven't seen my kids in, I feel like in weeks. And my question is it sustainable? Like, is what you've described, as great as it may be, and as many people as you may have cheering for you on the sideline, like, go, you can get it. How do you feel? Like, do you feel as if you're a 30-something or a 40-something or even a 20-something-year-old? What does that look like in 3 or 5 years? Like, if we stay at this pace, like if you continue, and look, I'm not trying to knock anybody's ambition. I'm not trying to pull you off of the track by any means, because I want you to win. And you will understand that over time. But a part of winning and a part of getting there is the regeneration of energy. Like, it's just finding a way to reset. It might look, not all of us have a week, especially not right now. Forget about the opportunity, or even the ability to, but the opportunity to go out and plug into a beach for a week. That's not always available. And even if it is, is that helpful? So taking off and having a week at a beach and having drinks and kicking your feet back and having somebody wait on you. Yeah, that's lovely. It's nice. It's nice to have, but you will go back inevitably to that same desk or that same role. And what will you take? What did you learn on that 1 week? What did you recognize about what it is that your body needs, what your mind needs, and how will you transfer that understanding into your day-to-day? I feel comfortable.
That is, you nailed it. How will you bring this into your day-to-day practices
so that you don't hit the wall? Because you will. If it's not a day-to-day, if you're not taking, and I'm not making myself the foremost authority on self-care, on how to keep your batteries charged, but like 3 minutes. I took 3 minutes. I did a quick, the breathing exercise. I can't remember what it's called, but I know it originated in India. It's one of those Indian breathing exercises.
Yeah, through your district. Yeah.
And if people don't know what that means, or what this is, just look it up. It's essentially just breathing through each nostril and taking exponential amounts of oxygen to your brain. It will change the way that you're able to operate. It just will be different for everybody. But that, or a quick stretch, for example.
Yeah.
Those are the things.
That's a really good point. And to lean it back into this chapter of your podcast being around, real practices and actions that you can take away. Mm-hmm. There's sort of 2 words that are landing for me, and one is rhythm and the other is practices. And I think recognizing your own energy rhythms is incredibly valuable.
Sure.
To figure out where you need to schedule in your practices of regeneration into your flow of life.
Mm-hmm.
And the example that, for myself, I use myself as an example for all of the work that I do. So I practice everything on myself.
Yeah.
So for me, in a week, if you kind of typical Monday to Sunday, my Mondays are my day for warming up. And so on a Monday, I generally don't have too high intensity cognition work, so nothing too strenuous for my brain, because this is my day in which my energy is building. And I integrate into my Mondays some good energy generation practices, because often I spend my weekends doing a lot of things with people and catching up with people that actually I need the Monday to generate the energy I need. So come Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, those are my high intensity days. Those are the days in which I actually schedule into my rhythm the work that is going to be most demanding of me.
Yeah.
And my Friday is my warm down day. So normally in the mornings I have some quite high intensity work. Cool. And in the afternoons I have some regenerative practices, which actually not only give me energy, such as going out and walking or baking or whatever it is. But for me, I also gain a lot of energy in having a reflection period in my week where I actually look at what are all the things that went well? What were the goals that I achieved? Based on that, what am I going to do next week? So I plan out on a Friday afternoon. I plan out my week coming based on how this. So these what I've realized is that is how my energy flows really well through the week. That is my rhythm that I sort of flow through, and it allows me to make decisions about how I schedule my time. And then once I know my rhythm, I can actually then work out where can I schedule my regeneration practices. So that's probably the other key part that I'd love for people to take away from this is don't wait until you burn out to go and regenerate your energy. You can actually anticipate when you're probably going to need it most and actually book it like you book a meeting.
Sure.
Book it in your calendar from 8 to 8:45 every morning. My calendar is booked out, and I call it energy charge. And I mix that up. Sometimes I go for a walk. Sometimes I'll cook. Sometimes I sit down and do some breathing. I hold that space as I would for any other meeting as my opportunity to do a practice that's going to give me energy before I start my day versus try and recover some energy after being exhausted from my day.
Sure.
So rhythm, knowing sort of your rhythm, even your rhythm in the day. Some people really have a high energy first thing in the morning and some people don't. And that's okay. Know where your energy flows in your day so you can schedule the things that you need to do. And when your energy is low, that's probably the time to schedule in some sort of energy regeneration practice. And if you don't have it scheduled in there, then your only option really is to wait until you need the energy. And that's not as a great way. It's like driving around your car and going, I'm not going to get petrol until that light comes on.
Right. That's not okay.
Well, everything's okay. It's a risky move.
Right. Very true. That's really helpful. Thanks for sharing that, Cheryl. I'll add to that because there's not a ton that I can. I just think it's a fantastic way of going about having an awareness around how you're going to allocate the energy that you have throughout a week. Love that you say, hey, early on in the week, I'm going to take on stuff that is just my warm up, my Monday. I'm not going to dive into anything too deeply. I'm just going to sort of kind of get the engine going and sort of, it's the first 20% of the race. And so it's a marathon, not a sprint, so I try to find a way on Wednesdays of doing something rejuvenating. midway part of the week. It could be what it is that I eat. It could be that I'm going to watch my show. So I watch a show called Billions. It was on last night, but I'll wait until Wednesday night because I always make myself, once the family's sleeping, I'll make myself a nice snack. I'll sit in front of the TV and I'll watch literally 90% of my TV for the week, which is like that hour. Um,
Yeah.
I'll sit and I'll watch my show. And on Thursday morning, I feel fantastic. It's something that I've learned, right? So it's taken time. It's taken reps at different approaches, but then inevitably I found something that works for me, and I believe that. So I think I'd also want to throw out, if you're doing something that feels right, believe yourself, and if there's something that's draining your energy that you would rather not be doing, continue to believe yourself. Right? It's imperative that you give yourself that space to sort of be where you need to be. And that might be unsettling for people in your circle or in your network, be it coworkers or a spouse, but I promise you they'll come back around. They'll come back around when they understand how well it is that it serves you. And if you can get articulate about it and you're able to share kind of what it means, that can be also really helpful as well. There's been moments where I've caught with my wife, not sort of taking that extra step and explaining to her why it's important that I go out and have a beer with John, one of my close buddies. She's like, oh, really? Like, oh, I thought we were going to watch this show. What I haven't done is said, hey, babe, you know what? I need to get out of the house a little bit. I really want some social interaction. I love you. I'll be back in a couple hours, have a good sleep. That piece right there. So being intentional, once you understand what it is that is serving you well in a given experience or a given sort of, experience, work to understand it at a deeper level, and hopefully accept it and embrace it.
And it becomes, in my view, even more important if you are in a role, whether that be in a workplace or in your community, where your behaviors influence others. Because as a leader, if you're showing up and you're holding space and you're talking about the regeneration practices that you have through your week, not only do you make it okay for other people to think about that stuff, but they might get a little bit curious and go, so do you go for a walk at 2:30 every afternoon? Talk me, and as a leader, if you truly desire a high-performing organization or a high-performing team, you need to exhibit the types of behaviors that create that sort of environment. And if you can go a step further than just saying to your team, hey, you need to regenerate your energy, if you can actually say, here is what I do on a daily basis or a weekly basis, you actually are exhibiting what is required in order to be able to perform at a high level. And I think that is so powerful. I watch when I see leaders change their daily behaviors and how the people around them, their family, their teams, their communities, they start to take on these traits as well. They start to have those conversations for themselves. But I really believe, in terms of a solid, strong action, is actually writing down what is it that gives you energy. What are some of those things? And they might be really obvious in your head right now. Write them down for that day that comes that you are so depleted of energy. You need a list to look at to go, oh yeah, I need to go for a walk. Or because sometimes we're so overwhelmed, we can't even come up with the creative juice to work out what we need. But equally, what is the list of things that deplete your energy? Because writing those down and taking a look at those, you might go, this is exactly what I did yesterday. No wonder I'm so exhausted. So the moment we've got some clarity around what gives me energy and what drains my energy, it gives us a starting point to then take a look at, so what did I do this week? Which of these got integrated into my past week? And then looking forward, how can I plan next week to include some more of these regenerative processes and take out a few of these drainers? Because I don't like that meeting with that person, or I don't want to do that thing because it drains me. So I would just really encourage people to actually write them down, so you've got your list to start working with.
They become like affirmations, right? They become your sort of, I don't know, They become a guide. They become for those that are visual, I've had clients take whiteboards and attach them to a wall close to the fridge and just, hey, here are the 5 things that are going to serve me well today. It is my choice as to whether or not I choose to engage in those activities. But you know what? I've declared to myself that this shit is good for me.
Yeah.
Leaders that are out there that are watching this, that are listening to this, and I'm talking professional capacity, model the behavior. So just to double up on what Cheryl said, if you are looking to, and most of you that I come across know this, and if you've worked with me before and you're watching this, it's exactly what you've heard from me, which is you can't expect out of your team what you're not able to sort of, to live through yourself. And so if your team is drained, well, it's highly likely that you are as well. Or if they're hitting walls often, well, yeah, that makes sense. So they will go as you go. So if they see you step out of the office at 2:30 in the afternoon to go for a walk and you've got a bottle of water and maybe a snack with you, and you tell them that I'm going to go for a 20-minute walk and go find a bench and go have a snack and hang out and breathe, guess what? They'll start doing the same, or they'll get curious about sort of, oh, why is that? Why is that important at 2:30 on a Monday to go out and do that? Absolutely.
Even just asking the question as a leader, talking to someone in your team and saying, how's your energy today? Like you said, that's often a question that we've never been asked.
Sure.
Especially not by our boss.
Yeah.
And depending on how safe the person feels to be honest about it, it begins a really interesting conversation, and it means I care more than just what you got done today.
Mm-hmm.
I actually know that in order for you to do your best work, I want your energy to be higher.
Sure.
So what is it that you need in order to be more energized? And often your team, if you can open those communication channels, your team will tell you what they need. They might not need, a team drinks on a Friday afternoon. They might actually want to go for a team walk on a Wednesday morning. There's asking them what they need in order to recharge their energy.
Yep.
You just become the power source that helps them renew their energy. And once that team gets powered up, it's incredible. It's so cool to see what a group of people full of energy can do.
Yeah, it really is. And, ripple effect, kind of creating that synergy throughout an organization. God, there's so much power in that. Thank goodness that not all leaders subscribe to that approach, because you and I would probably not have a lot of work to do.
When the day comes that every leader's got that sorted, I am happy to take off my coach hat and just enjoy the world that will be.
Fair enough. Yeah, no kidding. There's a big call to action there, I think. Where do you start? So even as a leader, it's time for you to get selfish with yourself and how it is that you manage your day to day, how it is that you manage your energy. Because over time it does become routine. So Cheryl, there's little things that, you can do throughout the course of your day that maybe don't necessarily get scheduled, but like me stopping to breathe for 3 minutes before getting onto a call with you was just an awareness piece that said, oh shit, I haven't stopped to do this today. And then a quick little stretch before I go into the shower a couple hours ago. I'm like, oh, I'm by myself. No one's around, no kids at my ankles. I can stretch. That serves me well. If I was in a corporate environment and in a hallway and somebody sees me up against the wall doing some type of a stretch, they might be interested to stop. They're probably going to ask me, now that I think about this, if I'm in a corporate hallway or in an office space and I'm doing a stretch up against the wall, someone's going to ask me if I'm okay. They're going to ask me they're probably going to ask me if I've hurt something, because why would somebody be stopping in the middle of the hallway to do a stretch?
Exactly.
Right. And maybe that there is sort of some food for thought, which is, it doesn't have to be an injury. No, I'm not hurt. I've been sitting, for a disproportionate amount of my day. And I want to flow blood through my body. Model the behavior.
And these all sort of link in as well to, the concepts and theories around habit change. But even if you just pick one a week, just one thing that you're going to introduce into your week and run it like an experiment, because you don't know whether or not this one thing for someone else a 3-minute breathing session may not give them a lot of energy, but they might come up with something else that for them totally works. So doing at least, identifying something.
Yep.
And the idea behind scheduling, you're right, perhaps not for everyone that works. I guess for me, because I have so many different things I'm trying to achieve on any given day, dedicating some space and time in my calendar for a regenerative practice, and that practice changes often.
Sure.
It keeps some regularity and rhythm into me doing this new practice until all of a sudden I just start doing it in the hallway. I just start doing it before a call. And, once that starts to become part of your norm, probably need to schedule it less. But
Sure.
I find for myself anyway, when I'm trying to introduce a new habit, putting it in my calendar, if it doesn't force me to do it, at least forces me to think about doing it.
It's there. It's tangible.
Yeah. Little pop-up reminder, it's time to breathe. And you go, I don't really have time. Or you at least go, I'm consciously going to not do this right now because I'm busy, but I'm going to schedule it to later in the day. Or
it puts it on Front Street, right? It puts it right in front of you. Okay, well, it's there. I have to at least think about it. For those that are listening, and maybe for you, Cheryl, sometimes we don't have the 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes to go do the walk or whatever it may be. I've got a client right now who is a realtor, so high performance salesperson, who is doing a side project or a project in his personal life I was going to say renovating. He's like updating and sort of reconfiguring his motorcycle. He's got a Harley Davidson, beautiful bike. I've seen it. So it's a side project for him. And so what we talked about was his desire. He's like, man, there's just times at my desk where I want to walk away and like go to the motorcycle, or I want to spend time on the bike, but I know it's not what I should be doing. And so we talked about when he's not around the bike. So if he's at an office or out with a client, but he needs to reset, or he just needs some time to sort of connect to something that's rejuvenating for him, that I've given him permission. And I said, here it is. If you need permission to do this, I'm giving it to you now. Is to just grab your phone and go onto the site. You don't have to buy anything. Just spend time looking at stuff related to your motorcycle and putting that down after 5 minutes and then preparing to go and talk to your client. It can change that interaction. It can change the space that he operates from.
Yeah.
You were going to say it gives him
energy.
Yeah, that's it.
And that's such a great example of, what gives you energy will be really different to someone else. Going on and looking at that might be a distraction. But if that gives you energy, observing that gives you energy, you put it on your list. You put it on your list of things that give you energy. So, and again, I recognize that people might go, well, I don't need a list to remember all those things. When our energy is low, our creative brain is not firing very well. So if you can, while you're feeling energized, create that list, it's like your go-to, so that you've got some things, because you might forget that you get energy when you go on that motorcycle website. And you go, I haven't been on there for weeks. Yeah, cool. That's something I can do. So I do, notice when, even over the next couple of days, if you have like a notepad with you or your phone or something, notice what things happen in your day that actually give you a bit of energy and capture them. And then equally, if you're doing something and you can feel the energy just draining out of you, write that on your list of your energy drainers. Within fantastic. A few days, you'll have a little list of things. And this awareness of going far out. I do that every day, and that's on my energy drain list.
That's a great one. That's fantastic. It's a great, I think there's some low hanging fruit there for people that are listening that go, oh, how would I even start? Great starting point would be, just to identify. It'll require you to be aware. So throughout your day, which I don't believe a ton of us are, unfortunately, but this is a great way of sort of, at least when it comes to this, so your own sort of wellness and your own energy management, I don't think it's a common sort of practice for people. But here are Cheryl and I saying, if you don't, you're going to hit that wall more often, and you're not going to show up in the different responsibilities, different places in your life the way that you would like to. That's a promise. That's a hard 100. Like that is, there's no,
You're getting into your car and the gas light is on. It's a risky move. You know, if you're getting up each day and you're going into your life with low, you've got low energy, you are increasing the chance that you are not going to respond to the things that are happening in the way that you want to respond. You're probably not going to be as calm and as warm to the people that you should be in your life. You're probably going to be reactionary. You're probably going to maybe make some bad decisions.
Yeah.
So it's a risky move to go out each day with low energy. You just don't really know what's going to happen. And worst case scenario is that your body and your mind physically will tell you to stop. And when we hit that point, we're going to have to slow down a whole lot more than just a 3-minute pause.
Preventative.
So,
Yeah. Because the crash sucks. The crash takes time. The crash takes us away from things that we'd rather be doing. The 3-minute breathe, the walk, whatever it looks like, it's different for everybody, right? There's no one size fits all. There's no cookie cutter approach here, but I think the call to action for today is bring some awareness to it.
Yeah.
If you are crashing, if any of what we've talked about today resonates with you and you're going, oh yeah, shoot, especially because of the world that we live in, I'm waking up in the morning with like a 70% capacity because I wake up with some level of anxiety or stress. Fine, we get that. Allow yourself to be there. But how do you function within that? And what are you willing to pivot? What are you willing to sort of, actually, let's leave the change aside. Let's just look at what it is, how it is that your day is being impacted positively and negatively, and start to draw from that.
Yeah.
Start to plan accordingly.
Absolutely. And if by chance you have someone in your life who you can actually do this together with,
yeah,
that can be incredible, whether it's your partner, it might be your workmate, it might be a friend, just to have the conversation and say, how do you get energy? What's your, what are your tricks that you might get a few ideas from people. And it also means that next time you see them, they can say to you, hey, how's your energy?
Yeah.
It's a totally different conversation to say, how are you doing?
Hey, what do you do for a living? Right.
Now on, you just turn up to a dinner party.
How's work?
Go, hey, I'm Cheryl. How's your energy level?
That's funny. Yeah, exactly. And oh my God, you'd terrify people. But there'd be that one person in the room. It's like, I'm just waiting for somebody to ask me that question. Yeah. It's great. Thank you for asking.
Don't go and talk to her. She's going to ask you some. It's too much.
Exactly. You know what I'll ask now? And this is probably completely a coach question, although I'm a relatively curious human as it is I'll ask people what they're working on. So I'll meet them, be like, hey, what do you have on the go right now?
Yeah.
What?
What are you passionate about? Because we're going, I'm an accountant, all right? I love numbers.
Totally. Yeah, that's exactly it. Cheryl, I really appreciate you taking the time, and it was a lot of fun hanging out with you. I feel like there's a bunch of like subtopics and other things that, we would be really constructive with. And if you'd be willing to do that, I'll definitely reach out and see if we can make some more time either later in the month or at some point down the line, whenever it makes sense for us. But thank you.
You're very welcome. And one of the reasons I love to do these calls is they give me energy. I always come away from jamming and talking with people. Yeah. This is one of my energy sources.
Yeah.
Have a conversation about something that excites me.
Yeah.
That for me is a huge energy source. So you've just bumped up my energy for the morning.
Amazing.
I'm feeling in a good space. I've also got some fresh mandarins.
Oh, is what you're having? Nice.
Yeah. These are also, this is another go-to for me is I go and have a piece of fruit.
Yep.
As soon as I have a piece of fruit, you've got a bunch of sugar in there, but there's something about, again, this sort of connection to nature is I feel good after I do it. So, so thank you. I'm all energized, Cav.
You know what? That's awesome. I feel the same. I had taken a 3-week break from recording podcast because towards the end of it, I felt like I was doing them so frequently. I was doing them. I was intentionally trying to record in order to have a series, right? Mm-hmm. So for the purpose of actually having episodes available, and that became draining. So there's my behind the curtains on why it is that I took 3 weeks before I was willing to connect with somebody again. And lo and behold, you and I connected last week, and I was like, yes, I would love to do it with Cheryl because I know I'm going to walk away from it, or hopefully both walk away from it feeling great. So yeah, I share that with you. So thanks for sharing that. Take care. Okay. We'll be in touch soon. And yeah, all the best.
See ya.
Bye, Cheryl. Take care.